So we've been talking about culture primarily so far. And to understand culture, you have to understand the mind of the person. The mind is what's in their head, but it's also what they see first when they look at the world. It consists of beliefs, values, and behavior primarily. So getting into the mind of a Muslim is what we're trying to help you think of. To think from his viewpoint as he sees himself. Now, when we try to understand the whole of what it means to be a Muslim, we want to think about the mind, but we also want to think about the heart. Because the heart is an important part of every person. The heart in Scripture, in Jewish culture, is very important too. When we talk about Valentine's Day, we draw a heart. Okay. Because supposedly that's the seat of emotion. So emotion is very important. People feel with their heart. They think with their mind. So to understand people, you have to understand their mind, but you also have to understand their heart, what they feel. And the third thing is what they do. When we talk about what people do, we usually talk about what they do with their hands. In English, one of the first questions when you meet someone is, what do you do? Say, how do you do? Nice to meet you. And what do you do? It's a very funny question when you think about it. What do I do? Well, I walk, I run, I eat, I drink. What do you do? But no, we mean something. What do you do? We usually mean, what is your job? Okay. So in English, because of Western culture, we define people by what they do. I don't know that that's always good. For instance, if somebody says to me, do I know Jonathan? Sure, I know Jonathan. Well, what does Jonathan do? Oh, Jonathan's a student. Okay. So now that's what you are. Your identity is student. But is that really you? You're more than that. Of course you are. There's more to know you than just what you do. But if I understand your mind, and I understand your heart, and I understand what you do, and I usually add why you do it. Okay. So not just what you do, but why you do it. Because if I understand your heart, I know why you do it. And if I understand your head, I know more why you do it. So to understand a Muslim, you want to understand his head, you want to understand his heart, then you want to understand what he does with his hands, what he does with his feet, what he does with his face, what he does with his ears. In the Bible, what he does with his tongue is very important. What he does with his nose, what he does with his eyes. All of those things help me understand him more. That's culture. Okay. The mind, the heart, and the feet and hands, what people do. So what is a Muslim? How do I understand a Muslim? I can understand if he does these pillars, like we talked about. I can understand his beliefs. I may even understand his priorities, But getting down to what he does, why he does it, that's very difficult sometimes. Today in the world, the majority of the world that is not Muslim doesn't understand why Muslims do what they do. One of the goals of this course is to help you understand why they do it. So yes, you have to get the mind, you have to get the heart, but you also have to get down to what they do and then understand more. So where do we go from there if we want to understand the Muslim mind? Well, we understand what a Muslim is if we understand what they think about God. Matter of fact, that's kind of the way we understand other Christians too. If I know what you really think about God and how He relates to what you do, that helps me to know you better. Okay. For Muslims too, what do they really think, know, understand about God? They believe in one God. God, in Islam, the religion, puts emphasis on the unity of God. Unity. Unity. What does unity mean? Sometimes as Christians we talk about unity. We don't like it when people disagree with each other. But does that mean everybody has to be the same? Is unity oneness? This is where we come to a big difference between the way the Bible teaches and the way Islam teaches. And it's locked into the language. Very interesting. One God, Allah. Actually, that's almost just a breath, the name of God. It's Al. And that's the way they say the name. Al. Because God is one, and the is the extra expression of oneness. Al. And that oneness is against anything different. No difference, only one. It's what they call unity. Unity means absolute oneness. There is no change, there is no difference. It's one. Very strong. Now, where does this word come from? Well, interestingly, Arabic, the language of Islam, is part of the same family of languages that we have for Hebrew. So there's a word in Hebrew very similar. The name for God in Hebrew, El. So you know I said Al, El. Do you know what the first name for God in the Bible mentioned is? Anybody studied Hebrew yet? Elohim. El. Equivalent word with just a little different sound, but a big different meaning in Hebrew. Now you could do el. That's the same as al. But when you add the H-I-M, him, in Hebrew, that means plural. So, to be literal, it means gods. Well, the question then, are we talking about gods or God? Are we talking about one God or many gods? In the beginning, Elohim created. In the beginning, gods created. Well, why do we believe in one God? Even the Hebrews, the Jews, why do they believe in one God? If this is the word in the Scripture, and the Jews would agree in the Torah, this is the word. Well, here's what you have. In the beginning, God created. Now, the word created is not singular. El is singular. When you add ohim, then that's plural, but the word created is actually a singular verb. So plural gods created singular. In the beginning, gods created singular. So it's one God that created, but he's plural in nature, meaning he's more than one. Now, if he's more than one, as you think about it as a Christian, you know what we're talking about. Do we believe in one God? Yes. But he exists in three persons. So we're talking about God, one, in plurality. So from a Christian viewpoint, God is one, but more than one. In Islam, Allah is one, not more than one. You see where the difference between Islam and Christianity, just in the most important concept related to God, comes into play. So God, to a Muslim, is one God, oneness. It's the doctrine of what we call tawahid. Wahid is the word for one. Ittawahid means the one, no other. This is the most important doctrine to a Muslim. God is one. That's why when they say their creed, they say, La, no, Allah, God, no other God. They add to it, Ilah, Allah, meaning no other God but God. Most important thing they believe.